Hello, UK Crime Book Club. I am here. I'm just having the best time already. You're just such a great bunch. I said to my husband the other day when we came offline, I said, these three are going to be brilliant because you all bounce so well off each other. Anyway, introduce yourselves and I'll stop waffling. Angela, do you want to go first?
Hi, yeah, sure. I'm Angela, obviously, and I write the Rowan Macfarlane detective mystery series that are set in Fife. And yeah, I've got 3 books out just now.
Brilliant. Ben?
Hi, I'm Benjamin Sawyer, and I live in South Wales. I write the D.I. Graham Walker series of crime thrillers. I've got 2 out, and the 3rd one is coming hopefully autumn-ish.
Karen?
I'm Karen Taylor. I've got also a detective series, and it's called Fairest Creatures, the first one in the series. And the DI is Brandon Hammett, and it's based in Penzance.
Brilliant. So why did you all choose? Let's start with a nice easy one. Ease you all in. Why did you all choose the settings that you did? Now, obviously, I figured this out already, but I'm going to let you explain where your books are set and why they're set there. So, Angela, do you want to go first?
So my book is set in a fictional town called Cuddy Ford, which is in Fife, which is where I live. And I've kind of put it so it's between Dunfermline and Kirkcaldy. And because when I wrote the first book, Jack in a Box, I needed buildings and places to be in certain places, and they weren't in real life. So I gave myself a fictional town, but I wanted to surround it by real things. And because I live in Fife, that felt right.
And Ben?
Quite easy. I live down in South Wales, and me and my partner are pretty much obsessed with sort of hiking and rock climbing. So we're always outdoors, and we always end up in these really, really beautiful places. But every time you're there, you're like, I wonder if you could hide a body here. So yeah, I've set all my books in my favourite places.
And Karen, I'm trying to pin us and I can't figure out why I can't find it in the group. So if I look a bit lost, that is absolutely why. I'm trying to make it easy for everyone to find us.
Lovely. Well, my book is set in Penzance because I have a place there. It's an absolutely wonderful town, and it's got so much going on in it. It's very, very creative. And there's been so much literature over the years. We've got Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier, John le Carré also, and so many different people. But I just fell in love with the town, and I thought, I'm going to have a detective series based there.
Brilliant. I'm just asking somebody to pin and tag us because I can't find the post in the Facebook group, which is bizarre. I don't know why I wouldn't be able to find the post that we're all on at the moment. So hopefully one of the admins will grab that. Already we've got the lovely Marion Todd. Hello, Patsy. And I'm assuming Leslie Lloyd, but I don't know where my phone is to see whose Facebook user is. Generally more organised than this. It's going rather well. I think we're in the middle of having a bit of a break from the hot weather, aren't we? So how has everybody been coping with the weather this week? Has it been really bad where you all are?
Well, I'm in London at the moment and it's been hot, but I've just been sort of, I don't know, fans on, etc. Really.
It's been filthy.
Oh, oh God.
It rained here this morning, so like
it's been raining here all day, but I'm absolutely boiling.
It's glorious now.
I'm not good with glorious. Give me, actually, the opposite end of the filthy scale. Give me like cold and overcast, and I'm a happy woman. Especially at the minute, not liking the heat, not liking it at all. Thank you, whoever has just come on and tagged everybody. Much appreciated. Hello, Dion, as well. And it was Leslie Lloyd that said hello. I was looking for the Facebook user. So, hello, everyone. What drew you all to this kind of life of crime that you're all in? This crime fiction, obviously. Don't tell me about your extracurricular activities. But Angela, what drew you into writing crime?
I think it was ultimately a foregone conclusion. I actually started writing children's books about 20 years ago and almost got a publishing deal, but that didn't happen. But I've always read crime. I started reading Agatha Christie when I was about 12 or 13. I watched crime on the television, and it just sort of became one of these things where I was like, I could do that, and that's my interest. And so it just felt like the right genre for me.
Ben?
I basically grew up watching The Bill when I was a lot younger. And when I finished college, I had every intention of joining the police. And I tried for years and years and years, and I eventually got in. And it was like the best day of my life. But I'd also booked flights to go to Australia because me and my partner went backpacking, and we ended up being away for like 3 or 4 years. So the police thing never happened, but it's always in the back of my mind. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah. Well, I
Karen.
started on the crime books as well, Agatha Christie, and I sort of moved on through with Barbara Bond, Will Grendel, P.D. James. Loved all those books. And again, like Angela, I wrote children's books as well. And then I sort of went on to other things. And what I found when I was writing short stories, my short stories quite often had an element of mystery or crime in them. And somebody sort of said, well, why don't you write crime books, really? And I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. And so I went to UEA and did a crime fiction master's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I certainly learnt about it and enjoy it. I think it is my genre.
Do you all eat, sleep and breathe it the way that I do? I'll watch. I don't read true crime, really. I have done, but I'll watch crime documentaries, but I'll read an awful lot of crime fiction, even if I'm not reading for the group, which I generally am. I will. I have no idea which one of us that is. Is that me?
That's me, sorry.
Okay. As long as it's not me, it's fine. Yeah, read a lot of crime fiction. Started off with kind of mystery books when I was younger. Haven't actually, I'm going to get people throwing things at the screen, haven't actually read any Agatha Christie still. But yeah, people are always quite surprised by that. But we've got such a wide variety that I literally read for the interviews and then buy other things that I like the look of and pick those up in between. So are you completely all immersed in crime? Let's go back to you first, Angela.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm a bit like you. I don't read true crime, but I like to watch crime documentaries. I recently watched Expert Witness on BBC, and it's just it's a kind of a science. It's a 30-minute program, and they're sort of sciencey based, and they tell you about the forensic elements, and that fascinates me. So yeah, I think that I love the crime documentaries. My favorite programs to watch are crime, and I like the full spectrum from like the cozy crime to the more sort of gritty crime as well. So it's just, yeah, I think that's primarily my watching.
Cozy crime I read recently was Rosemary Schrager's. I think it's called Best Served Cold. That was absolutely brilliant. I know it was co-written with somebody. I'm not sure who the co-writer was. I'm not sure it was ever announced. But that was actually a brilliantly written book. And it's nice to have something kind of in between the darker things that I read, something that's that bit lighter and fun. And, you know, I really recommend that one. Ben, how about you?
Most of my crime consumption is visual. As I say, we watch a lot of stuff on like Vice. So they're quite short little documentaries, but it's like really sort of like, I don't know, it's really like each one's like sort of like really niche, and it's the kind of stuff that you really wouldn't expect. And then we watched another one recently, and I can't remember the name of the chap that was in it. But it was about this young German lad who ended up dealing drugs from his bedroom, and they actually had him playing himself in the documentary because he's out of prison now. And yeah, he made something stupid, like I'm going to get the figure wrong, but it was I saw 10 million euros in his parents' bedroom. It's ridiculous.
Oh my word!
Yeah, it's insane. But sort of like fiction-wise, like series and stuff, I tend to go towards the more psychological side of stuff. So like Dexter, and I love a lot of stuff.
I've never actually seen Dexter, which I loved him in 6 Feet. I loved that. That was obviously a few years before.
Yeah.
But I always thought I'd watch it, and I've just never got round to it.
It's quite a long investment. I think it's about 8 or 9 series now, but it's totally worth the time. It's brilliant.
It's the summer holidays now. Maybe I'll get time to sit and I won't, will I? I'm not going to get a minute's peace with 4 kids in the summer holidays, but that might be a nice one. Maybe the older ones would watch it with me. Karen, how about you for TV, crime, fiction?
Well, I haven't seen Dexter either, which is interesting. I might try it now. My favourite was Breaking Bad. I just really love that. And also, I'm Better Call Saul at the moment. I don't know if anybody's watching that.
Yeah,
I just like the kind of intellectual side of it. It's very clever, brilliantly plotted. Years ago, I watched the old Columbo things as well. And I still sort of go onto those. And I used to like Morse too. So I like a bit of cozy. It doesn't have to be all dark. And my book sort of, I think, reflects that. There's dark elements, but also cozy, and there's a little bit of like the Daphne du Maurier sort of romance side to it. So it's all a kind of a mashup of all those different influences, really. And reading at the moment, I've just read a cozy, Nicola Upson. I don't know if anyone is aware of her.
I've got some books on my Kindle ready to go, actually, of Nicola's.
Yeah, and they're very lovely, and they're beautifully sort of descriptive, and she's very good on setting. So a good mix, really, on the crime side.
We've got more hellos from Tony and Donna, and somebody is admiring your smile, Ben. And Aggie says hello as well. Let's have a look. That's Robert Jones. Hi, Robert Jones. So you've got Ben's smile with the emoji with the love heart eyes.
I can see it. I can see it. Aye.
I'm being called out for not reading Agatha. I know, Marion. I know. Don't do the thing that everybody did, because I haven't read Terry Pratchett yet either. I was almost shunned. I was almost kicked out the book club. We were talking just before we came on about things that we all find interesting on the internet. Now, you missed this bit, Karen.
Okay.
Just before you got here, we just said, my husband was telling me about a woman who was bathing an animal and asking what kind of dog it was, and there's a very confused looking puma being washed. What kind of things do you all fall into rabbit holes of procrastination on the internet? Are you procrastinators, or are you able to focus? There's another question to throw in with that one. So Angela, coming back to you first.
So I can fall down a rabbit hole really easily if I start. I think everybody's a bit of a procrastinator. I mean, I think Twitter and Facebook and all that sort of thing, it makes it really easy to procrastinate. But if I set time, put my teeth back in, set time aside for writing, then I'll focus on it and I'll do that. But in terms of the rabbit holes I fall down, it's usually a news headline. I'll see something either trending on Twitter, or I'll check the BBC News headlines and I'll see something, and I like to then start to create a backstory. So the thing I was talking about before we were live was years ago, I saw a story about the human remains being found in the back garden of this very normal house, and saying to my coworker, "Oh, I bet like that those people's kids killed them and buried them in the back garden," and that's what had happened. But I will go with the headline, and then I'll create my own backstory.
Yeah, headlines are often quite misleading, aren't they? I am definitely drawn in. I am the clickbait queen. I get drawn into things that have got nothing to do with what the actual article, is about. Ben, how about you? Procrastinating?
Oh, shocking. A very, very, very short attention span, unfortunately. And I'll be typing away. I'll be a couple of hundred words into a paragraph, into a page, and then just look over to my phone and I'll start scrolling. I'm 10 minutes deep in Star Wars. Especially the latest series that's come out. The memes that come out of it are fantastic.
Karen?
Well, I love to read the news. I was a journalist, and I still get sucked into that. Every single morning, it's the first thing I put on. I go onto the Times and the Telegraph and the Mail, and then I go from there and I do Wordle. Does anybody else do Wordle here? So I'm into Wordle. And then I go onto Twitter, usually, and Facebook. So it's all that social stuff at the start. And then, just like Angela, I sort of set aside a certain amount of time for writing. And that's it. In I go, a couple of hours. And hopefully I'm not distracted, but I usually am. I'm usually pulled away by something.
can't remember how. I think Ben Bruce, one of our admins, who's an author as well, it does a brilliant quiz every month. I'm sure it was him that I first saw mention Wordle on Facebook. I had no clue what it was, so I had a look. And I do the daily Wordle, I do the daily hurdle as well, which is the music one. So it starts off playing like a snippet of a clip and you can get a longer bit. But again, that's like Wordle, there's only one every day. So it's a nice thing of I've done something naughty and like not done what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's only 5 minutes and then I can go back. But Marion Todd, I believe, does a few different ones. Marion, do you do I think there's a world one, and Square Word I think is the one that Marion likes. But I tend not to get sucked in too much on them because you could literally spend all day on them, on the other ones. Donna wants to know, Ben, if you're writing, why don't you lock your phone away or give it to someone and ban them from handing it back?
It's probably
Donna, are you volunteering to just lock all our phones up for us?
it's probably a really, really good idea.
It is, but it's not going to happen, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
Yeah, absolutely not. Totally not going to happen. Are any of you any good at kind of putting your phone down and leaving it out of the way?
Not too bad.
So those faces all tell no. Donna's saying she does Quordle, which is 4 at once. I do that still sometimes, but not all the time. Marion's answered Wordle, Birdle, Nerdle. Nerdle's the maths one. I tried that twice and it nearly made me cry and I turned it off. I'm not even kidding. Don't give me anything with numbers. Global is the other one I meant, and I can't name enough countries either. Square Word, yeah, and Waffle. Oh God, I've not heard of Waffle. Okay, that's something else to go and look at. And she wants to know, Marion wants to know, if you all prefer or think you would prefer to write a series or a standalone. So just talk us through what you've done so far and what you're working on at the moment and any kind of plans to do the opposite. So if you're doing a series at the moment, are you planning on doing a standalone and vice versa? So Angela.
So I'm writing a series at the moment, but I do have a standalone that I wrote a couple of years ago that I really liked, and I'm probably at some point the next year going to take it out, dust it off, and publish that. I think there are benefits to both. With the series, you get to grow a set of characters, and I think there's something really nice about that. But there's also something nice about a standalone where you just get this perfect storm and you encapsulate it all in one book, and then it's complete. And there's something very nice about that as well. I tend to read more series, so I think that's probably why I'm more drawn to them in writing, but I like both.
And yours isn't a traditional detective either?
No, she's a private detective, partly because I didn't want to write a police procedural, and that's because I didn't want to get involved in police procedures. I wanted to have somebody who could be a little bit like, skate outside, definitely well outside the lines of what the police could do, and wanted a bit more freedom with what they were able to do.
Ben?
Yeah, I agree with Angela completely. The first, but again, I write a series, and I have every intention to continue it at the moment. I have ideas for standalones, but nothing I want to sort of put time into at the moment. Like my first, the first 3 books in this series have an overarching story arc. Yeah, they do. But my plan is to sort of like from here on in, it'll be each book will have a sort of self-contained case. So it's more serial than an actual series. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy everything I read is in a series as well, much like Angela. So I love getting involved with one character and seeing. Yeah.
Karen?
Well, I am writing a series, but I'd actually say it's probably more like a trilogy. Every single book will be just like a standalone. It will start, it will have a beginning, and it will have a conclusion, and you don't have to go on. Ferris Creatures is actually the second in the series. I wrote the first when I was at UEA, and that sort of set all the sort of like characters going. There was Brandon Hammett, and lots of other different characters. But the second book got published, Ferris Creatures, Brandon's gone through, other characters have, and there was a conclusion to that, but now I'm working on the third. I've nearly finished. It should be published next year, and it's bringing some of the characters from the first book back in. And as well as having, there's going to be resolution, there's going to be conclusions drawn from that first book as well, and also tie-ups with relationships too, really, as well.
And I wanted to know why you all chose the points of view that to write from that you did, because you've all done different things with your characters' points of view and who the story is being told by. Was that an easy choice to make, and how much work did it take to, after the first draft, did you have to add lots of different things in, or did it just flow very well for you? Angela, talk to us about yours first.
So I write first person point of view for this series, and because it felt right, I think because a lot of this is really her story, it's Rowan's story, and I quite like reading first person point of view as well, because you feel really immersed in that, and as a writer, it's quite good because you are also limiting what you can share, and I think that makes for quite an interesting building of the world and the plot, because you're only ever seeing that person's point of view, really. And yes, it took lots of rewriting, in part because I'm a complete pantser, and in part because I was probably about 2/3 the way through Jack in a Box in the first draft by the time I really was comfortable with who Rowan was. So when I did the rewrite, it took me a really long time to just get that right from the beginning. But as I went into the further books, then I was already more comfortable with her, so it wasn't as big a task to make it right.
Yeah, it must be easier the second time round.
Yeah.
Ben?
The vast majority of the 3 books I've got so far are in third person. I say vast majority because there are chapters in book 2 that are written from the first person, and it was a decision my editor came to, and I never really wanted to mix point of views in one book, but I feel as though we made it work. And all the first person point of views in that book are from the killer's point of view, and I feel it builds suspense, makes it a little bit creepy, because in book 1, the book itself is told from 2 points of view. It's told from my detectives, and it's told from the killers, and that was very difficult to get right. And so the second time around, I did it from the first person, from the killer's point of view. It was more for a suspense thing, and I feel as though I got it right.
Karen?
Well, what I've chosen to do is have third person, but close third person. So it's not first person, but you're right in that person's head. So I have one chapter, it could be the detective. The second chapter in Ferris Creatures, it's the captive, because there is a woman who's captive. So you get the sort of action from her point of view. And there's also another character in that book called Julia, and she's somebody that's going through difficult times, and she was from the first book. So you get the 3 different point of views, and I find that in my respects, I like to open up the landscape a bit. You're just getting all these different views and just different perspectives coming in, but also you're getting into their heads as well.
Leslie was in Wales today and needed a coat, hat and gloves. She went out geared up for hot weather.
I love the way you work, because it's absolutely stinking where I am. So hot.
Are you North or South Wales?
South. I'm not. I'm about 5 or 6 miles from the coast, but it's so warm.
Yeah. I can't believe how hot it is in Manchester.
I was going to say, Ben, you don't sound that Welsh.
I was born in Swindon.
All right.
I think you do sound quite Welsh.
I moved down here, my parents, when I was 11. So I've been here for 20 odd years.
So what are you all working on at the moment? Angela, do you want to start us off?
So I've literally this week finished the first draft of book 4 of my series, and I'm writing a novella in the same series as well, which is for Christmas. So I'm writing a Christmas novella. And then once they're all in the works and they're doing all the things behind the scenes, I've got another completely different project that I've just started that I'm really excited about tinkering with as well.
And you've got a Rowan McFarlane novella as well.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I've got
yeah.
so I wrote a prequel novella, Discarded. I wrote it after I had written the books 1 and 2, primarily because I got feedback from some book reviewers. They really want to know a little bit about the before Jack in the Box. So I wrote it to kind of answer those questions.
And Ben, you've got yours is free on your website, your fledgling.
My novella is, yeah. Again, very similar to what Angela said. After the first book came out, there's reference to a kill a year before that ties into the case in the Minder, and it was sort of, yeah, it was kind of like I wanted to sort of expand on that. So currently working on the edits for book 3. I had them back about 2 or 3 days ago, and I think it's going to be, my head's going to be underwater for the next few weeks. And I'm also sort of drafting book 4 at the same time as well. So I'm not going to be very sociable for the next few months, unfortunately.
Karen, would you consider a prequel novella, and what are you working on at the moment?
I would certainly consider that prequel, because I think it was full of emotion, full of characters, and a lot of people actually, when I got the reviews in for the second book, they said, I'd just like to know a little bit more about a couple of those other characters that came in as cameos. There was a child in it, and there was somebody that my detective was quite keen on, who just had a very, very fleeting sort of cameo in that book. So yes, I'd love to do the prequel, but at the moment I'm working on the sequel, bringing in those characters, and I'm about 60,000 words in, and I'm just getting to that bit, the denouement, when it's all like racing down who's done it and just pulling it all together. It's quite exciting, really.
I did mean to ask you all beforehand, before we were live, if you needed to go and look at what you've been currently reading, if you are reading anything else at the moment. I often ask people to just bring them so that they actually remember the name of the book and the author, because I ask people and everyone goes, I should know this. I was reading this 20 minutes ago and I have no idea. So, so have you read anything this year that you've absolutely loved?
Can
you remember any of it though?
I can remember it. Paula Hawkins' new one. In fact, I didn't read it. Yeah, Slow Fire Burning. I didn't read it. I heard it on Audible, and it was just great. Rosamund Pike was reading it, and I absolutely loved it. And Gillian Flynn, she did a very small novella. Can't remember what it was called, but that's on Audible. Excellent as well. Psychological thrillers, very, very good. Lovely.
Angela?
I've read quite a lot. Do you know, you're right. You're reading good. That was really good. And then go, I can't tell you what that was, but I'm reading a book by a lady called Vivica Sten. I don't know if I pronounced that right because she's Swedish, and it's a translation. But I noticed that the series is, I knew it had been televised, but I know it's on, honestly, ITV, The Sandham Murders. It's on in Swedish and it's subtitled. But I started reading that series a few years ago, and I really loved the main 2 characters. So I come back to that again. It's that series thing that when I'm looking for something, I look for a new book from her, and I've got Marion Todd's new book on my Kindle waiting. But I go into hospital later this month, and I'm keeping it specifically for reading whilst I'm in hospital. So I'm looking forward to that.
I've got Old Bones Lie that Marion kindly sent me a copy of, and I'm dying to read it. And I'm just looking for that little break, that little couple of days in the middle of reading for interviews where I can pick it up. Luckily, she's very understanding about it. So not there yet, Marion, but I'll get there. I'll get there really soon, I promise. Ben?
I've literally just finished rereading Litter of Bones by J.D. Kirk. We were away last week, and I wanted to read his second one, but it's been so long since I read the first one. So I reread that, and I just forgot how much I enjoyed it the first time. Just the pace of it, and it's brilliant. It blew me away. It's fantastic.
There's been some discussion in the book club about his latest book. Begins with a W. Is it Westward?
Westward, is it? It's one of his thrillers, isn't it? So I think it's a separate series to his Logan series.
Yeah, it's the Hoon series.
Hoon series, that was it.
And that's getting rave reviews already. People are already complaining that they've already finished it and now they have to wait longer for the next one.
Oh, no way.
So that is a nice problem to have for an author. Yeah. So what have you all found helpful in terms of resources from writing your debuts to working on book 2 and thinking about further books? What did you find really helped you? Angela, let's come to you again first.
So I think for me, I have to say actually the writing community is really helpful. Like I spend probably my social media platform of choice as a writer to connect with other writers is Twitter, because I don't think you can, if you really need to know something or you weren't sure about something or you're having a down day and you think, what am I doing with myself? You can go on there and have a little tweet and you will get at least 4 or 5 people come to you with helpful information or a bit of a pick-me-up. And I think that's a really lovely part of Twitter. I know lots of people don't like Twitter, but I tend to stay away from anything that's not book Twitter. So I stay out of all the crazy parts of Twitter that can be a bit disruptive. But I think that's really useful. I also am a real fan of newspaper archives. So I have a subscription to the British Newspaper Archive, and I find that's quite interesting. But I do all of my research after I've done my first draft in terms of research for books. And in terms of like resources for writers, I found the Alliance of Independent Authors. They've got so much good stuff on their website that's a great place to go.
Brilliant. Ben, how about you?
Weirdly enough, it's actually this group. When I launched my debut, I sent out quite a few ARCs, and there's a couple of members of this group on ARCs, and a lot of people finished it sort of like the week after launch, and there are a number of issues that cropped up that weren't picked up by my initial proofread, and I was able to get those sorted very quickly, and I think it saved me a lot of hassle long term. And book 2 was in the process. It came out 4 weeks later, so I was able to get the same sort of thing done before that even came out, and I think that really helped me early on. And I think it's just like social groups such as this, they're dime a dozen, they're fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's always somebody that's got the time and the experience to just kind of help out with so many things. We've got so many people who will read for authors or answer questions about their areas of expertise. I do think for an author, this is a brilliant place to come for support and friendship, because it can be quite a lonely job, I imagine. So, Karen.
Well, I agree. Twitter, groups like this, you get so much feedback, and also from reviews as well. I mean, people have given lovely reviews, but all quite different. Everyone's sort of got a different angle on what I wrote for the various creatures, and I've just taken it all on board. Some people want a little bit more of another character. Some, it's just interesting. So I think really take on board all the feedback and actually just keep on reading. Don't stop reading other people's work, because you get so many ideas and style tips, etc., from other people. Just keep in the mix, really. Don't be isolated.
Was there a certain book that helped you all discover the right genre for you as a writer? Is there anything that you've read and you thought, wow, that's really eye-opening, and I could do something like that? Or is it? Do you ever get the same as me when I try to write something after I've read something? Then I think it's very off-putting how good that book was. I don't think there's any point in me ever writing anything ever. So how do you balance that, Angela?
So I don't think there was ever a book that I read and I thought, oh, I could do this. When I was in my teens, I tried, because I'm a huge fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Love Douglas Adams. Love him.
So I tried to write this strange mashup of kind of cross between Miss Marple and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which will never see the light of day.
I'd like to read that. I want that.
You're not the first person who said that, so maybe it should see the light of day. And I think probably when I started out, there's a lot of imitating style, and it takes you a little while to get into your own
find your voice
rhythm and find your voice. And I think probably I did that by reading some really great books and thinking that's really inspirational, and then go, oh, but that's not really me, and then working like little baby steps away from that. But yes, absolutely, I do what you do and read a book and go, oh my god, that was amazing. Like I am a terrible like I can never be that amazing, and I would never be that good. But then I think the important thing is that it isn't a competition.
No.
You can be good in your own bit, and differently good to somebody else, but that doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't worthwhile doing. But there are moments where you read something and you're like, God, that was just so well written, or that piece of prose was great, or that dialogue was fabulous. But yeah, I think it does take a while to get your voice, though, as you work through.
Ben?
Something that always sticks with me is when I was doing sort of like a lot of work over the Gower and stuff, I would listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I listened to L.J. Ross's Holy Island, and I loved like just the atmosphere, like the prologue in chapter 1. It builds up this incredible atmosphere, and that's always stuck with me. And the whole book's great, but yeah, that kind of just like my mind always goes back to that when I'm trying to write some quite sort of like darker thoughts. I think, yeah.
Karen?
Well, I don't try and sort of take or draw from these authors my own style. I just enjoy what they're writing. And I have to say, sometimes I don't like what people are writing, and then I might put the book away. So it's just a case of just enjoying what's out there and then turning away and doing my own thing, really. But it's interesting what you said about Angela said about the science fiction. And I wrote the science fiction book for middle grade children a while back. And it was so much fun. When I think about it now, they had that crime element, because they do, don't they? Like Star Wars, there is a crime element. There's another sort of like black star that's just trying to take over the world and sort of steal resources. So even back then, when I was writing that, there was that crime element coming through.
I'm going to go back to something that we touched on briefly about fictional detectives. So, do you all have a favourite? Mine's Jessica Fletcher, J.B. Fletcher from Maine, from Murder, She Wrote. I actually found a few years ago, me and Susan Hanley is one of the authors. I sent her a photo of me because I realised that I was being style influenced by Jessica Fletcher. I was wearing similar things, not the pencil skirts and things like that. It was more like the kind of floaty blouses with the bow. I found that, and I realised that's where that inspiration must have come from. So we had a good chuckle about that. So, favourite fictional detectives. You can have more than one. I know I've got more than one, but J.B. Fletcher's my favourite. Angela?
I typically like people who are underestimated. So I like Miss Marple because she's quite considered. She's also really ruthless. If you do get around to reading Agatha Christie and read Miss Marple, I know everyone goes for Poirot, but like I like Miss Marple because I think she's so underestimated. But she's also like she's no sympathy for the reason why you committed this crime. She's just you did it, and that's it. So I like people who are underestimated. I think Karen mentioned Columbo. That was, I think, the joy of Columbo was the fact that he was seen as this bumbling, almost incompetent detective, but wasn't. I like that, and I also like P.D. James's Dalgleish. I think he's interesting. I like someone who's got a bit of something about them.
Ben?
It's got to be Luther all the way for me, and just the way Idris Elba plays it was incredible, and I quite like a sort of detective, not necessarily broken, but someone who's everything's against them in their own personal lives, but they still manage to bring everything together to get the best thing possible for the victims of the crime. And there's just something about that I don't know. It's that tact, that sort of like that quite dogginess. I love it. It's brilliant.
Karen?
Well, going back to Columbo, I just love that as well. Somebody a bit shambly, somebody that underestimated, that just sort of gets there in a way. And I suppose Miss Marple too, but like you say, she's a woman and she's so sharp as well as everything else. And I think, who else have I got to? No, I think I've just sort of forgotten the other person, to be quite honest. But yes, those two. It's just the interesting character, really. somebody that you know, just don't underestimate them. Really.
As soon as you mentioned Idris Elba, I knew Donna was going to comment. We have the love heart emoji eyes again. I wrote down, as you were talking, Angela, I wrote down sympathy for killer. I found sympathy with everything I've read from you three. There's things to there's things that you do. Your killers are human. They're not. This isn't coming out right. But how important was it for you, when you're reading, to feel some sort of sympathy and empathy? Do you think it's always important to feel that for the killer? And what about when you're writing it? What are you trying to do with your writing? How do you want that to come across?
I think, for me, I think people are fascinating. And when you're writing all the different people, I like to think that doesn't matter where they come in your cast of characters, that they're the main character in their own story, the main character in their own story. So I think that it's really important that they're not two-dimensional. You've got to be able to see into their world, whether you agree with their actions or you think they're horrific people. You've got to be able to have a little glimpse into their world and at least go, okay, I understand how you got from A to B.
Yeah, you worded that so much better than I did. Thank you.
But yeah, I think fundamentally, my past career and everything I've done before writing has taught me how fascinating people are and how multifaceted they are. So you never have somebody who's just one thing. Nobody, I don't think, is truly all good or truly necessarily all bad as a general rule. You will have exceptions to that. And I think it's really important when you're writing characters to remember that they don't see their world from the point of view of your main character or your detective or the point of view of the law. They see it as in the terms of their own existence.
Ben?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You need that humanity there. They've got to be, again, having a three-dimensional person is about them having a backstory, if you will, because it's all well and good having all these like horrific murders throughout the book, but if there's no substance to them, it kind of like it can leave the reader feeling a little bit flat, or whoever's consuming that media, whether it's television or whatever. And like for me, the main killer in my first book, who ends up in the third as well, was the first character I developed, and I wrote a lot of his scenes even before the detective even existed. So it's all, I don't know, it's just really interesting. The psychology behind people is brilliant.
It's a lot to think about, I'd imagine, when you're writing a full novel as well. Karen?
Well, I totally agree with both, really. When I was doing my MA, I did a critical essay called Sympathy for the Devil. And it was really sort of like pinpointing a lot of these killers that you couldn't help have sympathy with. I mean, for example, the talented Mr. Ripley, again, a fascinating character. In Cold Blood, the killers there, I mean, they were downtrodden people, they were opportunists, and they did the most awful, horrific crimes. But it was just a one-off. They weren't doing that every week. And my serial killer in my book now, a terribly damaged person, really, and he's killing for what he thinks is a good cause. And that's what I wanted to put forward. And I think some of the feedback I got, and from one reviewer, just said, it's not often you feel sympathy for a killer. And they did for this particular one.
How hard is it? And I don't want you to tell anybody what the motives are. Obviously, we don't want to give any spoilers. How difficult was it for you to come up with a motive, whether you're a planner or a pantser? Obviously, Angela, you've already told us you're a pantser. So at what point did you know you'd hit upon the right motive? It was realistic enough for you?
I think because it was something that I could imagine really happening. The set of circumstances, these are things that do really happen in Jack in a Box. I've taken them to extremes in some ways, but the fundamentals behind the reasons why people get into crime, their options, their ability to leave that life behind and make different choices, even if they really, really want to, is
We're all now distracted by the cat.
I know, distracted by the
No, it's good. It's fine.
Still on the show now. Yeah, lovely cat. But no, I think because if you base the other parts of your characters' lives in reality and you draw from the real world around you, it's not too challenging. I think the thing is tying up all of the threads to make sure that there's that everything that you start with ends up being concluded or answered or resolved in some way. I think that's the important part. But I think for most parts, I think Karen was right. Like sometimes you look at a situation and you think, actually, I can totally understand how that person came to be in that life. I used to watch Criminal Minds all the time, and sometimes I'd be watching them talk about, the analysis of the criminal, and I'd be think, I understand how they that came to play. So I think if you bear that in mind, it's not a big part of the thing that I struggle with in terms of bringing the book together.
Ben, does the motive come easily to you?
Yeah, I try and bring it in as early as I can. But again, what Angela was saying, what Karen was saying, a lot of it comes down to sort of personal psychology of the person and their background. And I think time and time again, when you read about when you read true crime and sort of history, sort of like most notorious killers, they all have something in common, and they all have these damaged backgrounds and terrible things have happened to them. For the most part, there are exceptions to that rule.
Yeah.
And it just humanizes them, and it doesn't give them an excuse for the crimes they've committed, but it's sort of, again, sympathize. You can almost see a little bit where they're coming from and why they think what they're doing is right, perhaps.
Yeah, it's that whole, if that hadn't happened during their childhood, adolescence, then, this might not be the path that they're on right now. It's that reasoning behind it. Karen?
Well, I came up with the theme first, and then I developed the killer. Really, I decided where we were going from, and the killer, it's basically a lot of the action is sort of in a room with the captive and the killer, so you see that relationship developing. So it's not.
Made me shudder then when I thought about the room.
Sorry, what was that?
That made me shudder when you said about the room. I kind of shuddered.
I know. But yes. So relationships sort of developed, and that horrible room becomes slightly normalized, really. And then that's how I developed the killer. And then I went on to develop his background as well as the book developed, as I wrote it.
I'm going to ask you, I've not asked this for a while, actually. It used to be it still is one of the group's favourite questions, and we always get different answers to it. Favourite moments for you, or memorable moments for you so far as an author? So what have you loved? What has been great? What has been surprising? Angela?
I think hitting publish on my first book was a huge moment. It's something I've wanted to do all of my life, is be published, and then to see the first reviews come in. I mean, it's always nice to have reviews from people you know. When you get those reviews from people you're like, I have no idea who that person is, and they're good reviews, and they go, oh, I really get Rowan, and I was rooting for her, and I was thinking, oh my God, why did she do that? And then those are really, really high moments. I think it's really easy to forget, like, to celebrate. I'm really bad at celebrating things, so I'm really bad at going, oh, I did this, so let's like make it a thing. So I can hit publish in a book and go, right, what am I doing now? Like, on to the next thing. And so I have to really kind of make sure I take a moment to go, that's actually an achievement. So it's a hard question to answer, but I think for me, it was when I started to get people reviewing the book that I had no idea who they were, and they understood the character that I'd written, and they liked her, and they liked all of her slightly thorny prickliness, and that I knew that she'd resonate with people. That was probably a really high moment for me.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Ben?
One of the most surreal moments was holding like a physical copy in my hand for the first time. When you open that box, like, oh my god, it's there, and it kind of just like that blew me away a little bit. And yeah, just to sort of like share what Angela was saying, that first sale, that first review, and it's just like, this isn't real, this is weird. Yes, it's kind of weird, and it's like because it's all still fresh for me, but every day when you look at it, you're like, this can't be real. Why are people reading what I've written?
Because it's great.
Yeah.
This is why you're all here. You're all here because you've written fantastic books, and feel like I've lived in your heads all week, and it's not a bad place to be. I'm glad I'm on my side of it. Let's be honest, I don't want to be in the books, but yeah. Karen, how about you? Memorable moments?
Well, I guess, yes, obviously, you know, getting your first book published like that and seeing it and think, oh my God, this looks lovely, brilliant. And then we did a launch, and my publisher's Scottish, and he came from Edinburgh to Kingston, and we had a launch at Waterstones. And I'd never done one of those things before, but he was such a great personality, and he stuck me on a bar stool in the kind of like the cafe in Waterstones and asked me some questions, and it just went really well. And all my friends came in, all my close friends came in, a few others, and it was just lovely. And also those reviews that come in, and my publisher did a couple of blog tours, and that was great. I mean, you know, a couple of those every single day, somebody new coming in with a different angle and a different review. Loved it. Absolutely. I'm enjoying it. Even now, this is brilliant too, just getting this opportunity to talk about your work.
I love doing this. I love talking to authors. I can't imagine anything better. I really can't. You can see I'm like beaming. I love it. Have any of you ever acted out a scene as you've written it, just to check that it kind of works? So I'll give you some examples that we've had before. Jane Isaac wanted to know if remains buried in concrete apparently stay as they are. You know, it stops the decomposition process, and you dig somebody up in concrete, and apparently they look exactly the same. What she didn't realise was that does work. However, when you bury a pig shoulder in concrete in your garden and dig it up on a hot day when your neighbours are having barbecues around you, she didn't realise the decomposition process starts very quickly. There's a terrible smell. I'm just picturing her face while she's trying to dig it up quickly and hide it from the neighbours. God knows what they thought was happening. We've had Mark Richards, who had a fight on the end of Whitby Pier for his book. There's been some great ones. Anne Coates held a knife up to her own neck. Most people look at me like I'm mental when I ask this, because most of you may have acted it out by saying the dialogue out loud or thinking about it rather than doing it. But we like to ask because you never know what you're going to find out. So, Angela.
Nothing as dramatic as that, no.
Nobody ever has. It's the strangest thing.
I do things like I don't, because I don't commute anymore, but I used to, when I commuted, I used to try out bits of dialogue as I was driving along, so that like I would be talking to myself in the car. Or I'll do things like, if I say somebody rests their head on their hand in a certain way, I'll like do that and think, how does that look? Or I'll move my head around and do weird things like that. But no, I've never done anything as dramatic as any of those things. Not to say that I wouldn't. Now
I was going to say you might consider it.
I would definitely consider some of those things, but I think some of the things that would be on my list probably are a bit gruesome. I did do a lot of research into blowflies.
Okay.
So that was quite interesting, but I didn't actually have any blowflies. It was just research. But yeah,
see, this would be a good thing for your social media, though. If you're going to, record certain things and talk about the research that you're doing, I'm going to write that down. I think that's a blooming good idea. Ben?
No, unfortunately not. That pig shot, the thing with the pig shot is fantastic.
Jane Isaac, I mean, legend. Would you consider, is there anything that you've wanted to act out?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult to say on the spot.
I know, I did say I wouldn't put you on the spot. Shall we move on and ask Karen?
Maybe.
Well, I've only done vague, silly things. I think I was the opening of my new book is the train going into Penzance, and I was sort of looking out the window and seeing what was out the window as I was going in. Also, I wanted to do a pensive look, so I was thinking, how can you describe that sort of like curling your fist in your sort of shin or something like that, and sort of piercing your eyes, that sort of thing, but nothing that great. But I have to say, I was helping a friend, and she had a dead body that was splayed out in front of a bathroom door. And I thought, you can't do that. The way she had that legs and things like that. So I was sort of like acting that out for her, thinking, no. And she went, actually, you're right, Karen. You can't have that leg and that limb doing that. So yes,
you were the dead body on the floor.
He was, but he was just, his legs were in slightly peculiar places, and I thought that they possibly wouldn't have been there.
No, fair enough. That's really good. We're almost out of time. I've just looked down. It's almost 8 o'clock. If you've got books, please show them off or on your phone. If yours haven't, look at that, organised.
Oh, look, yeah. There it is.
So give everyone a quick recap. Let's start with you, Angela.
So I write the Rowan McFarlane mystery series. I've just recovers done for them all, and I think they're fabulous. Obviously, it follows the course of a woman, Rowan McFarlane, who's a private detective, and she's feisty and prickly and very independent. And yes, so yeah, I love her.
I love her. Ben?
Yeah, I have 2 books out currently. The Minder, which is book 1, and Beyond the Waves, which is my second one. My covers have been done by the wonderful Stuart Bache, who has absolutely nailed it.
They are lovely covers.
I'm so happy with them. I do have the cover for book 3, which I've shared with my email list last week, and the reception's been really good. It's a little bit darker, so a lot of reds in it. Yeah, I'm hoping to have book 3 out hopefully this autumn. Yeah, all going well.
Fantastic. Karen?
Yes, Ferris Creatures is my book, which is out now. And again, this is a local artist did this picture, Janine Wing. Absolutely brilliant. And when the next one comes out, I'd love to use her again. It's about crimes in Penzance, and D.I. Brandon Hammett leads it. And his parents are his mother's Cornish, his father is Texan. And he goes backwards and forwards. And so he's got a little bit of the Columbo in him, a little bit of that old sort of like, Southern style about him. And he plays a fiddle in a country band, bluegrass. So he's a lovely guy, good character. But he's seen some horrors as well over in Alabama and, in Hicksville, basically.
Thank you all so much. So thank you to everyone who's commented. I'm not going back to the Idris Elba discussion that they've got going on. You can imagine. Behave. But thank you all so much for coming. I was looking forward to this all week, and it's been even better than I expected it to be. So thank you all.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you'll all come back for further interviews with the next books.
100%.
Absolutely. It's been a blast. I've really enjoyed it, Sam, and everybody else, Andrew and Ben. It's been lovely. Thank you. And everybody else tuning in. Thank you.